Hello and welcome, everyone. Wow. All right. Oh, gosh. It's been a road getting here. I want to thank you all for sharing yourselves over this time, for showing up to this community today, and for this exciting experience together. The Camp Stevens mission is to inspire, challenge, and empower personal, social, and environmental transformation. And yeah, clap it up. Yeah. I'm really proud to be here to represent today after many generations of folks who've been doing this for 70 years. A few years ago, in the fall of 2020, I think we were all going through a lot. I know for me, I was experiencing grieving and loss and disconnection. And I picked up a book that someone had given me 3 months earlier called See No Stranger. And it cracked my heart open and showed me a way forward. And since then, I think I've become a better leader, a better friend, a better executive director, a better parent, a better wife. And I think I can't imagine a better way to celebrate our time together and our time forward than with this amazing friend that we brought here today. So, let me introduce to you a renowned civil rights leader, lawyer, award-winning filmmaker, educator, innovator, and author of the #1 LA Times best-selling book, See No Stranger. She is the founder of the Revolutionary Love Project and recognized by our own very own President Biden as a healing force for America. It is my honor to introduce Valarie Kaur.
Guru Ji ki Fateh. The beloved community belongs to divine oneness, and so does all that it achieves. Thank you so much for inviting me here today. Thank you so much, Kathy Wilder. Thank you to the leadership at Camp Stevens. I mean, to be out here with you all, with the sky above us and this earth below us, and just surrounded by all these trees. I mean, it's just, oh, I can feel that breath in my body. So let's deepen it together. I invite you to take a deep breath and let it come. Hold for a moment and good, let it go. May we feel the soil beneath our feet and honor the Kumeyaay ancestors of the soil, past, present, and future. While we open the ears of our ears, the eyes of our eyes, the heart of our heart. May we hear something in the next hours that gives us the medicine to be brave with our life. Seeing you all here, especially with your children, is reminding me of a moment that I shared with my family last summer. It was the thick of the pandemic, and I was on the floor of my living room playing with my 2-year-old daughter, and I was just so exhausted. I was spacing out because the next moment, before I knew it, she was climbing on top of my head. She sat there for a good minute. And then she climbed back down again, and she turned around and looked at me with the biggest smile. I mean, just so much pride. And she said, "Mommy, I went #1 on your head." At which point I turned to she had a diaper on, but still, I turned to my husband and I said, "It's time for a break. Mommy needs a break now. Let's take a break now." I don't know, how many of you have had small children through this pandemic? I mean, right? Okay, yeah, this is what it has felt like for me, like on top of my head all the time. So, after that moment, we decided that we would take a trip as a family. And instead of coming south, now we know we could have come here, but we decided to go north to the mountains. We went to the Sierra Nevada mountains, just outside the valley where my family has lived and farmed for many generations. And so I knew these mountains well, but we decided to go to a spot in the forest where I had never been to before. We made our way down a mountain slope. And as we made our way down this pathway, the trees began to change all around us. Their trunks started to widen, like as thick as pillars. And we had to crane our necks back to see the very tops of their crowns. It felt like we were entering a cathedral of trees where dust motes floated in the sunlight and time stood still. Even the children hushed their voices, which, was saying a lot. These are the great sequoias of Sequoia National Park. They grow only on the western slopes of the Sierra Nevada mountains. These trees live up to be 3,000 years old. The indigenous peoples of that soil call those trees the ancient ones. And this tree, this forest, is called the giant forest. It's called that because the world's largest living tree lives in this forest. How many of you have been there? Oh, look at this. So I'm basically catching up to what you already know. Well, let me tell you about my experience. It means I think you can imagine this really clearly, right? Because there are signs. It's like this way to the General Sherman. Like the world's largest living tree is named after a man who killed a lot of people in battle. And so, I'm a little late to the party, but I started to get very worked up about the name of this tree when my son, he's 7, he's like, Mommy, he's waiting for an open. Let's just call it the great-grandfather tree. He knows me very well. So Mommy calms down, and we proceed to find our seat at the foot of the great-grandfather tree. Now imagine sitting at the base of that tree with me. That trunk, right, that tree goes up not 1 story, 2 story, but 27 stories. Can you imagine that we're all sitting there now together? This tree was born in 300 BC. Can you imagine with me all that this tree has witnessed in the last 2,200 years? Through all that rush of history, this one solemn tree has stood in this one solemn place and witnessed us. Now it looks like the great-grandfather tree, because that's what we're all calling it now, right? Yeah. It looks like the great-grandfather tree is standing alone, but it is actually supported by all the trees around it. The roots beneath the earth create a conscious network called the mycelium, and these trees send each other information and warnings. If there is disease or fire on the outskirts of the forest, the trees on the inside already know about it. If one of them is sick, the others send them nutrients through the roots. These trees practice empathy. They know that longevity and resilience are only possible in community. We spent all day in the giant forest, laughing and playing and praying and singing. And no one went to the bathroom on my head. Overall, it was a very successful day. We promised that we would come back. So you all know what happens next. 4 weeks later, a lightning storm ignited the KNP complex in windy fires, and the giant forest was surrounded by flames. Every day we were looking at the cover of the LA Times, and we saw images of firefighters desperately wrapping what looked like tinfoil around the base of the tree, because that was our best defense. And every night, Gavi said, Mommy, do they know the prayer? Is anyone saying the prayer for the trees? Like, okay, Gavi, we'll say the prayer. My grandfather's prayer, Tati Vanalagi. The hot winds cannot touch you. You are shielded by love. So every night we sang this prayer, the hot winds cannot touch you. Tati Vanalagi, Pad Brahm Shanai, Jogid Hamare Ramkar, Dukh Lage Na Pai. Night after night, day after day, week after week, we waited for the smoke to clear. And when it finally did, the giant forest is still standing. The great-grandfather tree is still there. But they counted 3,600 giant sequoias dead in the forest, which means that we have lost 20% of the world's population of sequoias in California superfires in just the course of 14 months. These trees have lived for thousands of years, only to die en masse in our lifetime. We were just there a few months ago this summer. We made good on our promise, and we visited the great-grandfather tree and all the but right around it, right, if you've been back, you see just scorched earth. And I could taste the ash in my mouth. And the taste was familiar. How many times has it felt like we have been looking into the darkness of the tomb these last few years? Between the climate crisis, the pandemic, the rise in anti-democracy forces in this country, the ongoing assaults on the bodies of queer people, trans people, women and girls, all the catastrophe and pain at our borders, the rise in white supremacist violence, so that these nights when I tuck my children to bed at night, I have to reckon with the fact that they're growing up in a country more dangerous for them as small, brown, Sikh American children than it was for me. My son heard his first racial slur at 4. I was 6. Go back to your country. And I have to wrestle with the fact that for all my tools as a civil rights activist, all those beautiful things you named, that I will not be able to protect my son on the street or in the schoolyard. That I can only make him strong enough, resilient enough to face it. Those nights when I put those babies to bed, I just feel so breathless. And I realized the last time I felt this breathless was when I was bringing these babies into the world. See, the final stage in birthing labor is the most painful and dangerous. The contractions come so fast, there's barely time to breathe between them. It feels like dying, but it's called transition. Transition is the stage that precedes the birth of new life. My loves, I am here with you all in this clearing because I believe that we are in transition now as a nation and as a species. Within 25 years, the number of people of color on this soil will exceed the number of white people for the first time since colonization. We're in the midst of a massive demographic transition. Will we continue to teeter on the brink of a kind of civil war? A power struggle with those who wish to return America to a past where only a certain class of white people hold dominion? Or will we begin to birth a nation that has never been, a nation made up of other nations, a nation that is truly multiracial, multi-faith, where you see my babies as your own and I see yours as mine? When we consider the climate crisis, the stakes become existential. Will the human race perish within a few generations? Or will we be the ones who teach humanity how to live sustainably with the earth as a global community for the first time in recorded history? Is this the darkness of the tomb or the darkness of the womb? I am here with you all because I choose to believe that we can labor for the nation that is longing to be born, the world that we dream for our children and their children. And that every single one of us has a particular role in that labor. You see, the social and political crises of our time, they are fueled by a deeper spiritual crisis, a constriction of the human heart, The choice to stand for some of us instead of all of us, in policy, in word, and in deed. And that means that, yes, we need sound government. We need just democratic institutions. But the only way those institutions will last is through a shift in culture and consciousness, a new way of being, a new way of seeing that leaves no one outside of our circle of care. A revolution of the heart, what I call revolutionary love. This is why I believe revolutionary love is the call of our times. Now, for most of my life, anytime someone stood on a stage and said love was the answer, I would roll my eyes. Love? With what we're up against? But I've come to learn that the problem is not with love, but the way that we have come to talk about it in this culture. Love is more than a rush of emotion. It is more than thoughts and prayers. I mean, think of your deepest relationships between your partners, your families, your children, this community. Love is sweet labor, fierce, bloody, imperfect, life-giving, a choice we make again and again and again. When we choose to love like that beyond what evolution requires, then our love has the ability to disrupt institutions and norms around us that depend on hierarchies of human value. Our love becomes revolutionary. Now, we have heard this call to a revolutionary kind of love for thousands of years. I mean, for as long as that great-grandfather tree has been standing, it's come down to us on the lips of spiritual teachers and indigenous healers through the centuries, from Jesus calling us to love thy neighbor, and Abraham to open our tent to all, Muhammad to take in the orphan, Buddha, unending compassion, Mirabai, love without limit, Guru Nanak, the founder of the Sikh faith, my faith, taught us to see no stranger. All of them invited us to expand that circle of who counts as one of us to include all of us. And that way of seeing, that way of being was rooted in this truth of our interconnectedness. It is the Mayan precept, you are my other me, Lakech. It is the Sanskrit truth, Tat Twamasim, I am that. It is now increasingly verified across disciplines of science. I mean, we share a common biological ancestry with everyone alive. Take another breath into your body. You're breathing in atoms that circulated in the lungs of your ancestors. You can let go now. And these same atoms that you're exhaling, they will circulate in the lungs of your descendants. We are made of compounds cooked in the belly of long-distance stars. I mean, we can look at anyone and say, you are a part of me I do not yet know. You are a part of me I do not yet know. This great awakening in human consciousness took place in what we now call the axial age. It is the root of all modern declarations of human rights, and now our very future as a nation and as a species depends on whether we can put this ethic into practice. And so this brings me to the offering that I come with. I stepped away from the front lines after 20 years of working with Black, Brown, Indigenous communities against racial violence and social injustice. I was running out of breath, and I was given a gift that very few women who are mothers and activists are ever given. I was given a room of my own, time away. I took my family to the rainforest, and there I began to pour through the stories of social movements in the past, wisdom traditions, and I was searching for the answer of how do we put the love ethic into practice? How do we make it not just the call of saints and sages, but something that each of us can hold in our hand like a compass? And I began to see these patterns in these practices that I've now come to call practices of revolutionary love. This is the tool I wish to put in your hands. It is the postcard you all were handed. I'm going to talk through it, and if you want, you can follow along with the card. And you're literally holding the compass in your hands. Look at that. All right. So it begins with our definition, right? Revolutionary love is the choice to enter into labor for others, for our opponents, and for ourselves. I'm going to begin with that one part of the compass that's pointed to an other. That practice is called see no stranger. You see that on the compass? See no stranger. All right, how do we practice loving others we do not yet know? It begins with that inner ring. It begins with wonder. The root of all love is wonder. When we love on our babies, we have to wonder about them every day to figure out how to care for them. What if we took a little bit of that kind of love and as a way of moving through the world? So imagine with me that when you're walking down the street, every time you see a face on the screen, the subway, or on the street corner, you say in your mind, sister, brother, sibling, beloved. When you are doing that, you are retraining your eye to see all others as kin. You see, all of us carry unconscious bias. Within a split second, before conscious thought, our minds decide who in front of us belongs to them or is one of us. And who we see as one of us determines who we stand with, who we fight for, who we care about. So what would happen if we trained our eye to see no stranger? It sounds so simple. Brother, sister, sibling, beloved. But who we see shapes what we do, how we show up. Who we see as one of us determines whose pain we allow ourselves to feel, whose grief we carry. It determines what policies we support and what leaders we elect. Now, when we're wondering about others, we're opening ourselves to each other's stories and therefore to each other's grief. That's that next practice. There's a lot of grief out there right now, isn't it? Isn't there? Like, it's just in the air. It's unresolved grief in our bodies, in our communities, and it may make you want to shut down. It's too overwhelming, but this is what I want to invite you into. There is no fixing grief. There is only bearing it. And in bearing it together, we can survive it. You don't need to know people in order to grieve with them. You grieve with them in order to know them. In any time in U.S. history when people who had no obvious reason to love one another came together to grieve, they gave birth to new relationships, even revolutions. And so wondering about each other, grieving with one another, gives us information for how to fight for each other. And each of us has a sword and shield. Whether it's your doctor's scalpel, your artist's brush, or your Twitter feed, or your pocketbook, or your time, how will you fight for others? Wondering and grieving and fighting, those are the ingredients for what I call deep solidarity. Shallow solidarity is rooted in the logic of exchange. I show up for you, so you show up for me. But deep solidarity is rooted in love. I show up for you because I love you. This kind of solidarity has truly saved my life. I don't think I'd be here before you without it. See, I was a kid in college when I became an activist. A family friend, Balbir Singh Sodhi, a Sikh American father, he was the first person killed in a hate crime in the wake of 9/11, in the wake of all that racial violence that exploded in this country. But his murder barely made the evening news. His murder catalyzed me to take up my camera and to begin to make my first film. And I went from city to city, from home to home, sometimes when the blood was still fresh on the ground. And as I carried the stories of my people bleeding, I began to feel kind of despair spread through my own chest. And I think that despair would have swallowed me whole. But I had to make one last interview, and that was with the widow of Balbir Singh Sodhi. I went all the way to India, and I found her in the farmlands in the village, and there she was, dressed in white, the color of mourning, dark circles under her eyes. And I looked at my list of questions, and I threw them away. I sat with her, I wept with her, and I said, "What would you like to tell the people of America?" I was expecting anger or the despair I felt. And you know what she said? She said, "Thank you. Tell them thank you." When I went to America for my husband's funeral, they came out in the thousands. They didn't know me, but they grieved with me. Christian, Jew, Muslim, they chose to love me. Tell them thank you for loving me. That love saved this widow's heart and in turn saved my own. I began to understand that the only way to find the courage is to look not only at the suffering and isolation, but to lift my gaze enough to see all of the ones who are brave enough with their love to hold our hands, even when we're facing the abyss, to breathe with us, to push with us, to love us through, to love us through, to love us through. So if that kind of love can sustain long-term social change, then what do we do when the person in front of us is an opponent? You take that compass in your hands. We're going to go to that second part now. We're going to turn it to face someone we see as an opponent. Okay, now note that I don't use the word enemy. An enemy is a fixed and permanent identity. An opponent is a fluid category. An opponent is anyone whose ideas or beliefs and actions oppose yours. Like, you see, I've come to learn that there are no such thing as monsters in this world. There are only human beings who are wounded, who act out of their insecurity or greed or defiance. It doesn't make them any less dangerous. But when we choose to see their wound, they lose their power over us. And we get smarter about how to respond. So that overall practice is called tend the wound. But note what's that in that inner ring? Yeah. It begins with tending our own wounds. How many of us have been taught to suppress our rage when we are hurt in the name of love and forgiveness? Right? Especially as South Asian woman of color, as a girl, I just thought I was only as polite or good or lovable as my ability to choke down my anger. But no, my love, the solution is not to suppress our rage. That will just make you sick. Nor is it to let your rage explode. The solution is to process our rage in safe containers, like our wisest ancestors did, the shaking and the drumming and the sweating and the singing and the dancing and the being together, to move that energy. And when you move that energy through, you can ask yourself, what information does my rage carry? What is it saying about what's important to me? And how do I wish to harness that energy for what I call divine rage? Divine rage. The aim of divine rage is not vengeance, it is to reorder the world. Now, that step that you might be ready for, that creative action, might be that next ring to listen to our opponents. If we are safe enough and brave enough, what does it mean to listen to someone you see as an opponent? Now, the primary goal of listening is not to change them or legitimize them or compromise with them. It is to understand them. For in understanding them, we preserve their humanity and our own. I know this is hard. Beneath the slogans and the sound bites that just make you want to, I invite you to keep wondering why. Why do they say that? Why do they do that? And then, inevitably, you'll hear their story and you'll see their wound, and that will give you information for that next ring in the compass, which is to reimagine. What might it mean to reimagine a context, a solution, a policy, an outcome that leaves no one behind, not even them? Okay, I know what I'm asking you to consider is courageous work and challenging work, because I have lived it. 15 years after Balbir uncle was killed, we returned to the gas station and placed flowers on the spot where he bled to death, and his younger brother Rana was standing next to me, and Rana looked at me and his sorrow in his eyes, and he said, nothing has changed. He lost a second brother just a year after Balbir uncle was killed to violence, and now, as hate violence was skyrocketing, this was just at the onset of the 2016 election season, he looked at me and said, nothing has changed. And I said, Who is the one person we have not yet tried to love? The next day, we called Frank Roque in prison. Will be your uncle's murderer. I'd never heard from him since the trial, and at first I thought this was a big mistake. He said, well, I'm sorry for what happened to your uncle, but I'm also sorry for the thousands who were killed on 9/11. And I start to get angry. I start to feel rage rise in me like fire in a cage. I was playing the guardian role, and perhaps because I was playing that role, Rana could keep listening to Frank. He could keep hearing what I couldn't hear. He said, Frank, this is the first time I have heard you say you were sorry. And Frank says, yes, I am sorry for what I did to your brother. And when I go to heaven to be judged by God, I will ask to see your brother. And I will hug him. And I will ask for his forgiveness. And Rana said, we have already forgiven you. Forgiveness is not forgetting. Forgiveness is freedom from hate. But remember, it took us 15 years to make that phone call. Sometimes forgiveness comes at the end of a long healing journey of all that grieving and raging and healing, right? Other times, forgiveness comes at the very beginning, to look at your assailant's eyes and to say, you cannot make me hate you. For yet others, forgiveness comes in the messy middle, and still for others, forgiveness doesn't come at all. It's up to the survivor to decide. To withhold her forgiveness is sometimes our only active agency, and that is okay. That is okay. But what I have learned is that once we choose to forgive, we free ourselves. Forgiveness is for you, not them. It's for you. You free yourself. And once you become free, then it opens up the previously unimaginable possibility of reconciliation. That's what happened with Frank and me, and as we began to speak over the years, I began to hear his story and see his wound, and I understood that so much of white nationalist rage in this country is a symptom of unresolved grief. They are grieving the illusion that this nation ever belonged just to them in the first place. It might not be my role to tend to that grief, but it might be yours. Every single one of us has a particular role to play in the labor of revolutionary love. And that labor is long, and it's courageous. And to sustain it, we have to go to the final slice of the compass. You see, social reformers all through history, from Gandhi to King to Mandela, they taught us a lot about how to love others and how to love our opponents, not at length about how to love ourselves. This is the feminist intervention. And so you'll see that practice there. It is the wisdom of the midwife. She says, breathe and push. Now, she doesn't say, all right, ready? Push, 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 push. She says, no, my love, breathe. And now push. Okay, now breathe again. And now push. There's a kind of cadence, a kind of rhythm to sustain one's energy through any long labor. The labor of raising a family or running a camp or building a movement or rebirthing a nation. You got to be breathing before you push and then breathing after you push. There's a rhythm for that kind of long-lasting stamina. So I ask you, how are you breathing every day? I have a feeling you all came here and you've all been to the Sequoias because you know how to breathe. Again, you're ahead of me. It took me so long to learn this as an activist. I just push all the way out of college. I just kept going, and I thought I was only as good or as worthy as my ability to grind my bones into the earth. You know, I thought I had to make myself suffer in order to serve. I was always comparing my pain to the pain of people who I was serving, and so it took a breakdown. It took a breakdown for me to wake up, and I was lucky. I mean, how many, especially activists of color, have lost their lives or gotten sick or opted out or taken their lives because they hadn't had what I had. I had husband, I had community, I had mother to say, oh, my love, we got to get you to breathe. And so that's the real reason we went to the rainforest. And there I learned how the origin of me choking myself of breath was what I call a little critic inside of me. A little critic who said, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not beautiful enough, you're not American enough, you're not enough, you're not enough, you're not enough. And therefore, surely you're not worthy enough to be able to care for yourself the way you care for others. It took a long time, I think we all have that voice in some way. It took a long time for me to understand that there was a wise woman voice in me too. The wise woman who says, oh, my love, you are brave enough. Audre Lorde says we can learn how to mother ourselves. It was when I had my son in my arms for the first time after he was born. I was like, you are so good. You are so beautiful. You are so brave. He's a newborn. And I'm like, you are so smart. And my husband is like, what? Why didn't you speak to yourself that way? And he was right. So I began to practice. I literally have a journal. This is Wise Woman Journal. And she says, wise woman here. Wise woman says, oh, my love. She calls me my love. She's very sweet. It's like, oh, my love. You're really tired, you're jet lagged, you really wanted the children to be with you this weekend. I know, but look, all you have to do is take a sip of that tea and look at Kathy's gorgeous smile and this beautiful welcome. You go onto that grassy clearing and you don't have to be perfect, you just have to be present. I mean, she's talking to me all the time, all the time. Learning how to listen to the voice of the wise woman in me is how I finally begun to learn how to love myself. So breathing, pushing, transitioning ourselves as we're transitioning the world is how we have that final practice on the compass. I ask you, as you've been hearing me speak and hearing these stories, what are you noticing in your body? What are you drawn to? What is the medicine that you need in your life right now? Is it loving on others? Is it facing some of those opponents with love? Is it loving yourself? In any given season, there is one that we need more than the other. I invite you to get brave with that practice. I invite you to take that next step, knowing that you are held by this gorgeous community. I invite you to be brave with your life. For revolutions happen, not just in the big, grand public moments. Revolutions happen when people inhabit a new way of being. So welcome to the revolution. For we will be someone's ancestors one day. We will be someone's ancestors one day. They will gather in this clearing, in this beautiful forest, and they will summon us. And if we show up with our whole hearts, if we are brave with our life, then what they will inherit from this era will not be our trauma, but our bravery born of joy. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes. Thank you.
Amazing. Okay, so we're going to do some questions.
Yes, I can't wait to talk.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So Kathy will be out with a mic, and you can just give me your name and anything that's on your heart.
Okay.
I'm just going to sit for a second.
This is going to be a thing. I'm going on the line. Take a breath, Kathy. Yeah, there you go. Hi, Valerie. I'm Eva. Thank you so much. That was beautiful and so important for my kids to get to hear. I think my question for you is how you talk to your young kids about this important and heavy work.
Yeah. How old are your kids?
They're 8 and 10.
8 and 10. Hi. Honestly, maybe you have a lot to teach me. I'm still figuring it out. My babies are 3 and 7. And my work every day, I mean, I come home from the vigil or from the mass shooting or from the latest protest, and I don't know if this is right, but what I've decided to do is make my home a world of safety and belonging and magic. Every night, even on the darkest nights, when I'm carrying so much pain in my body, we have dance time. And the children turn up the music. And sometimes I'm like, no, no. And my husband's like, your rules, you said dance time. I'm like, oh. So we turn up the music. And sometimes like even with like the number one still in my hair, like, no, like in a month, no matter how ragged I am, we turn up the music and we dance. We dance. And in the beginning, I'm just like a zombie, but then there's like, you know, baby, you're a firework, or we don't talk about Bruno, no. I'm like the same songs hundreds of times. It's okay, they're good songs. So the children start to laugh and start to leap into the air, and then I start to laugh, and then pretty soon I'm dancing. I'm dancing. I just came home from the vigil, and I'm dancing. And in the beginning, I used to feel so ashamed and guilty if I felt any pleasure after being with so much sorrow, and now I understand that the deeper I let in pleasure and joy, the deeper my capacity to hold the grief. It's like two wells, right? Carving out the other. It's like your heart expanding to be able to hold both, and my children are helping me hold both. And in our faith, it's called Chardikala. Chardikala, ever rising joy, even in darkness, ever rising spirits. Even in the pain of labor, can you feel the world won't give you the joy? Can you feel it from the earth up, from the ground up, like sparkling energy rising? So that hope is like a moon. It waxes and wanes, waxes and wanes. Sometimes it's full and luminous. I feel so hopeful. Other times it's just a sliver, and sometimes I don't see it at all. But what matters is the work my hands do. And if I can access that joy, and I can access that, if I can teach my children how to access their joy, then maybe that is the best thing that I can teach them. The kind of resilience that they will need when they will, in a couple of years, start to face and grapple with how complicated and noisy and confusing and hard the world can be. So that's my practice now, right? And we got to talk afterwards, because pretty soon I'm going to have to be talking to help them in ways that I feel will challenge me. So we're all in this together. Thank you for holding it with me. Yes. Oh. Yeah. Now I have Bruno stuck in my head. I'm so sorry. I just did that for
Sound of falling sands.
Yes.
My name is Ellie, and one of the things that came up while you're talking is this idea of relay breathing. I'm a singer, and in the dark times after the election, one of the things that went around among my activist groups was this idea, my activist singing groups, is when you have to hold a long note as a choir,
Yes.
it's not one person, it's everyone. And it's important that everyone take a breath so that the note can continue as long as it's supposed to continue in the music. And it's and it's called relay breathing. And so it's the handoff and making sure you don't breathe at the same time as your neighbor. And, you know, like, and so, and when it comes to doing that as an activist, and like that kind of collaborative communal relay breathing of making like sustaining the effort, like I feel like that's where I get really challenged, because it's like something will come up and we'll like respond to it, and then it kind of wanes, and it's that critic inside that's saying, well, we should keep going at that high level. And it's like, I don't know. I'm just kind of throwing this out there to see what your experience, if you heard this analogy, and what you might suggest for helping with sustaining effort.
Oh, my love. It is such a good metaphor. It's true. It's the war in Ukraine, happened, but then it got overshadowed by the news of Roe, the overturning of Roe dropping, which then got overshadowed by like the new climate news, which then got overshadowed by the anti-democracy, and like Buffalo Uvalde were somewhere in there. Like it's just, that's how I keep thinking of transition. Like crises come so fast, there's barely time to breathe between them. And the truth is, the war is still going on. The pandemic's still going on. The you know, like all of just because it recedes from the news doesn't mean it's gone away. And so there's this sense of like layered crises. And if you're identifying as an activist, that means you have opted in to paying attention to even those that have receded. So it's like, how do you even orient to, it becomes so overwhelming and so crushing of any capacity inside. So I just want to say that your breathlessness is not a sign of your weakness. Your breathlessness is a sign of your bravery. You are awake to what is happening in the world. You are awake to what this era of transition feels like. And what I want to offer you is what it took me so long to learn, that you do not hold it alone. I sometimes read these words for myself, so this is why I have to turn to the book. Tonight you're going to see the stars. I had forgotten the stars, burning so strong and long that their light reaches us long after they have died. Isn't that what our lives and our activism should look like? Not the supernova, a single outburst under pressure. We must be the long burning star, bright and steady, contained and sustained, for our energy to reach the next generation long after we die. Here's the key. Oh, and to be part of constellations. Let us see ourselves as part of a larger picture, even if we are like the second star on Orion's belt or the seventh of the seven sisters, for there is no greater gift than to be part of a movement larger than ourselves. And that means that we only need to be responsible for our small patch of sky, our specific area of influence. We need only to shine our particular point of light long and steady to become part of stories sown into the heavens. That's what I want to invite you into. That even as you surround yourself with people who might help you take turns, okay, you gotta breathe, so I'll push, and then I gotta breathe, and so will you push? Like, call upon the wise woman inside of you, the wise voice inside of you, to help you discern when to breathe and push, because only that voice will know what you need. And keep in your mind the image of the night sky, and that you are just one point of light among so many. And that if we are whirling in the heavens together, if we're working in concert together, then we're bigger and brighter than we ever could be on our own. And to trust that, you know, even on the darkest nights. And honestly, I think that's what saved me, that I've spent the last 20 years organizing around hate. I took a pledge at the People's Inauguration, which we held last year. I took a pledge to spend the next 20 years organizing around love. And what does that mean? It means that I can't actually show up on the front lines like I used to at the site of every tragedy, that instead, like, no, my love, your work is to try to equip people with the love ethic in these very particular ways. So even I feel like what I'm doing is not enough, you know? But if I'm trying to do all the things, then I'm never actually putting enough dots in a single quadrant to make a measurable difference with my lifetime. So you just have to decide, what is my small patch of sky? And trust it, trust it, trust it. And then call upon the people around you. It's like, yeah, keep going, keep shining. Take turns singing. Yeah, I know I mixed up a lot of metaphors in there, but you got it, right? Breathing, singing stars, you got it.
Yes. You got a kid question here.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Elle. I was wondering if you're gonna make a children's book of your book. I just want to know because I want to read it.
Okay, Elle, this is for you. Are you ready? I wrote this for my daughter, but now I'm going to be giving it to you. Though, Elle, how old are you? 8. Can you pretend like you're 3? Okay, cool. Can everyone pretend you're 3? All right, here we go. Let's see if I got this. Okay, this is called Wonder Baby, and it'll be out in 2024.
Oh, right on.
Ants on a leaf, birds in the sky, sweet little bee, tree so high. Wonder Baby says, wow, whoa, you're a part of me I don't yet know. People walk by, faces are new, so many colors, points of view. Where have they been? What have they seen? Their stories show me everything. Wonder Baby says, wow, whoa, you're a part of me I don't yet know. Sad stories make me turn away, but I keep listening, I get brave. I speak, I march, I dance, I sing. Justice is what we can bring. Wonder Baby says, wow, whoa, you're a part of me I don't yet know. And when I'm feeling very sad, red all over, very mad, it's hard to wonder about anyone else. So I wonder about myself. And then it happens, like a surprise. The feeling changes before my eyes. Each feeling has a special part in showing me how to love my heart. Wonder Baby says, wow, whoa, you're a part of me I don't yet know. So when I see someone being mean, I wonder what's hiding underneath. Find what makes them misbehave. Love can make us very brave. Wonder Baby says, wow, whoa, you're a part of me I don't yet know. Stars up above, shimmering sea. The world is infinite just like me. I choose to love everything alive. What do you need to grow and thrive? Earth and people, creatures too. Marvelous me, radiant you. Wonder Baby says, wow, whoa, you're a part of me I don't yet know. Oh, I look at you, your smile is sweet. I hold you tight, I am complete. Wonder Baby says, wow, whoa, you're a part of me I don't yet know. I love you, Wonder Babies. Mwah. My husband was like, it took you 400 pages to write See No Stranger with what you just basically communicated in the song. I was like, yeah. So August of 2024. And in fact, you see that card that you all have in your laps? If you look on the back of it, there's a QR code. We are very fancy. You just hover your phone, open the camera on your phone, hover it, and then it'll pop up. And if you sign up, then we'll just be in touch forever. But that song was dedicated, this performance of the song was dedicated to you, my love. Thank you.
Okay, I think we'll do one more question.
Yes.
Yeah, right, great.
Thanks so much for all you've shared today. My question is, if one could see your writing to the wise woman and receiving from the wise woman as your way to breathe, if one is fairly new to this concept, how does one figure out what one's way to breathe is? Like, where does one look for that individual practice?
Oh, I just wish I could take you all on. Okay. Well, let me just say this. I haven't announced it yet. we sent an email out, but next week I'll be announcing this because this is a question I've gotten most when I'm on the road. But like, I have this compass, but where do I start? And I'm like, I could tell you where I think you need to be, but there's a wise voice inside of you that will tell you what you need. And so I worked with Sounds True, and I recorded a transformation lab. It's a 2-hour course. It's out. If you just Google Valarie Kaur Sounds True, and you'll see it's called The Secret Wellspring, Uncover the Wisdom Within. And I figured it out, like how to teach, like, okay, here are the handouts. Like here's how to imagine that wisdom inside of you having a shape and a form and a name, and what do you call that voice, and what does that voice call you, and then what is that barrier? It's the little critic. Well, what does the little critic look like, feel like, and then get them to communicate with each other, and then what does it mean to like understand that the little critic will always, you're a part of me, I don't yet know. Like, I wanted to banish the little critic. I wanted to expel it. I have like violent fantasies of like, forever, you will be gone. and the wise woman was like, you're a part of me. I was like, this little voice is a part of you. We just don't need him in charge. You know? And so I had to wonder about that little critic, and the little critic was like, it was just the voice of fear. The little critic, you can't stand on a stage after coming out of law school and you know, championing civil rights and talk about love. They're going to eat you alive. And here's the thing, the little critic wasn't wrong. It's not safe for like women of color like me to be out in public saying the things that I say. He was just wrong about the solution. The solution is not silence, it's more solidarity. And so the wise woman in me is like leading me to like be brave, to reach out, to find sisterhood, to find community, to build that up, to build movement from the ground up. And it's happening now, you know, all across, in the last year, all across the country, people have been self-organizing around this revolutionary love compass. In schools, they're saying we need to make this the way that we do social emotional learning. In houses of worship, they're saying, well, it says love thy neighbor in our scriptures, but how do we actually practice that? So they're organizing sermon series and service projects around it. And advocacy organizations, they're saying this is how we don't become what we're fighting against. In companies, they're hitting a wall with DEI. There's only so much you can shame people into obedience, but anti-racism is the bridge. Beloved community is the destination. So how do we build out the capacities to love as we go? So this is a movement that is a heartbeat on the outside of me, and this is what we'll be designing for and supporting for the next 20-some years. And none of it would have happened if I listened to that little critic who's like, get small, get quiet, just focused on yours and your own. I had to listen to the wise woman. And so if any of you are interested in cultivating that voice inside of you, just take this little course. It's a 2-hour course. Again, if you, you'll see it. But to answer your question about how to breathe, if you're fairly new, I think it begins with awareness of the body, of what you're actually noticing in the body. And I don't mean like getting all metaphysical, just even right now, just notice like you're sitting here, you've been listening to me for a while. What does it feel like to sit on this chair or on the earth? At what points of contact does your body touch that surface? Can you feel the sound of the baby right behind you? Do you notice the feeling of the breeze on your skin, how it's getting a little colder? Do you notice the light dappling the trees? And then turning to wonder about yourself, like what are you carrying in your body? What are the sensations that you're carrying? Where does it feel constricted, a little uncomfortable? Where does it feel spacious and open? Can you find that most spacious place inside of you? I saw the breath. Look at that. It's working, right? Like notice that beautiful open space, your throat, your chest, your belly. Just breathe in. Hold and let it go. A few more deep breaths like this, just breathing in. Hold and let go. You're not trying to change anything. You're just dropping into your body, becoming aware of what it's like to be present, not in the past, not in the future, just here right now, the magic of us being right here, right now, delighting in it, breathing. Good. Notice how it feels. Now, this is feeling good to you, like it's feeling really good to me. This feeling that you're having, it's not just like, oh, I have to get through my life and maybe every once in a while this feeling will find me, I'll fall into it. No, that you can cultivate this feeling. You can't force it, but you can You can create the conditions for it. You know, I notice when I'm just allowing myself to wrap my hands around the cup of tea and feeling the warmth, even between the Zoom calls, like, I'm breathing. You know, I notice when I'm dancing with my children and afterwards we're sweating and we're laughing and just take a breath. Oh, I'm breathing. I notice when I'm at the ocean, I lift my gaze to the horizon and it's just, oh, there's a dolphin. Oh, I'm breathing. You can put your body in places and in situations that invite that kind of breath. And when we invite that kind of breath, we're inviting joy in. That's the practice. Notice what it feels like in your body. And once you know what it feels like, you can find it again and again and again. Imagine having this feeling every day. Every day in the mornings. We learned this through the pandemic. I was waking up so scared, so stressed, so anxious. Anandi was literally waking up, sitting on my head. I mean, who knows what she was doing. Like, I sleep with the babies. Like, I wake up with them. And I had to learn, like, I need breath in the morning. But how do I do it? How do I get there? I came up with a mantra, and we say it every morning now. You can say it with me. Ready? I get to be alive. I get to be alive today. I get to be alive today with you. Thank you so much for this beautiful, alive experience together.
Woo! Amazing. Thank you. Before we move into our books, oh yes, let's just take a minute.
Oh,
yeah,
thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Oh, I love you back. Thank you.
Now you're part of the family, so
I
watch
feel
out.
it.
Before we go into our book signing and reception time, I just want to say, first of all, there's going to be plenty of time for people to get books signed. So I just want to put that out there. Take your breath, and she'll be there. I do want to invite Ibrahim Ahmed from Joel Anderson's office. He's our supervisor. He's got a couple certificates to present here.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Valarie, for sharing your powerful words.
Thank you, brother.
You know, I want to maybe start off by saying the air is crisp and nice here. Huh? I got to leave downtown more often. Seriously. Man. So my name is Ibrahim Ahmed. As Kathy mentioned, I'm a policy advisor for County Board of Supervisor Joel Anderson. Are most of you familiar with who he is or what he does? Great. Awesome. So he is the representative on the county level for Julian and a few of the, or most of the communities in East County. So I'm here on his behalf to present a proclamation to Camp Stevens on their 70th anniversary. I mean, 70 years, that's a big deal. So we just wanted to sort of commemorate and commend all the work that you've done, Kathy, and those before you, and give you a big shout out.
Thank you very much.
So that is it. You know, they usually come in a beautiful sort of frame. We were having supply chain issues, so you know how it is, 2022. Sure, most of you aren't surprised, so we'll get you that frame. Yeah. So, yeah, thank you for that. Secondly, I do want to also give a big shout out to Kathy, the executive director of Camp Stevens, of course. So, this is for you. Yes. Yeah. She's awesome. Yeah. Well deserved, Kathy. Lastly, big shout out to your keynote speaker, Valarie, and we wanted to commend all the great work she's done in this space and just thank you for all your efforts. And on behalf of the supervisor of the county 2nd district, we wanted to thank you for all you've done in this space. So this is for you.
Oh, you're so kind. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I wanted to keep it brief and sweet. So if you guys ever have any questions or concerns regarding any county-related issues, feel free to reach out to me. I am the representative for Joel Anderson on a lot of, equity and racial justice issues, but also, anything and everything ranging from homelessness to immigrant refugee affairs, all the fun issues. So feel free to reach out to me. Again, my name is Ibrahim Ahmed. I'm the policy advisor for Supervisor Joel Anderson. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ibrahim. All right, wonderful. So we're going to send Valarie on her way over to her table. And as she goes, let's give her a big shout out one more time.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And before you go, everyone, I want to make a couple of announcements. One, there's going to be, for the next hour, we're going to have a book signing and refreshments. I want to thank Mama Africa Kitchen for providing some of the hors d'oeuvres tonight. They provided homemade sambusas. We're so grateful. Our partners from Refugee Net made that happen. And also, just enjoy yourselves over this next hour. We will have dinner buffet starting around 5:30, but that will be fluid with the end of the book signing. So you'll hear a bell ring for the start of dinner, but that you can just flow up there as you go. And the buffet will be open for a while so people can just take their time and enjoy themselves. Hopefully you brought a coat because the sun is now going down. So thank you so much for your rapt attention and for being part of our community. Whether you were part of our community when you came here today or this is your first time, we love you all and you're part of our family. Thank you for being here.
But I see it in you, so we gon' walk it out.